Throughout history, the powerful have used cruelty as a tool to control the weak, often justifying horrific punishments as necessary for maintaining order. From ancient civilizations to modern times, these punishments serve not only to penalize but to humiliate, intimidate, and crush any spirit of rebellion. This slow and agonizing method of execution was not just for killing. It was a public spectacle designed to break the will of the people. Victims were nailed or tied to wooden crosses and left to die a slow death, often over several days. The condemned were tied to a large wheel, and their limbs were shattered with iron bars. They were then left to die, often in public. The execution served as both punishment and a grotesque spectacle designed to remind the populace of the power of the rulers. The victim was stretched on a wooden frame, their limbs dislocated, causing excruciating pain. In the Middle Ages, anyone suspected of challenging the teachings of the Church could be branded a heretic. In the 18th century, the guillotine became the symbol of the French Revolution, used to execute thousands during the Reign of Terror. Unlike earlier methods, the guillotine was designed to be a quicker, more humane way of killing. With the rise of modern states and legal systems, punishment shifted from public spectacles to more controlled and private methods. In early modern Europe, torture was still used widely to extract confessions, particularly during the witch hunts of the 16th and 17th centuries. While earlier forms of punishment had relied on public humiliation and physical torture, the new era introduced confinement as a form of punishment. Prisons became the place where society's unwanted were locked away, and the harsh conditions of these institutions often led to psychological and physical suffering. Instead, it moved from public squares to private chambers, such as in the case of lethal injection, which became the most widely used method of execution in the U.S. Lethal injection is designed to be quick, efficient, and private, minimizing the spectacle of death. The use of this method, however, has not been without its own issues. In some cases, the drugs used in lethal injections have caused prolonged suffering, leading to questions about the humane nature of this form of punishment. Despite these challenges, lethal injection remains the preferred method of execution in the U.S., symbolizing the ongoing tension between justice and mercy. The debate continues as to whether the death penalty, or any form of punishment, can truly serve justice, or if it only perpetuates the same cycle of cruelty that has defined human history for centuries. While many countries have abolished the death penalty and moved toward reformative justice, the legacy of past punishments serves as a reminder of the extent to which power has always sought to control the weak. Prisoners were subjected to grueling labor, overcrowding, and inadequate food and medical care, leading to high mortality rates. It is a reminder that, even in modern times, justice is not always a force for good, but often a tool wielded by the powerful to maintain their dominance over those who have little power to resist. The cruelty of past punishments, from the guillotine to the electric chair, leaves an indelible mark on history, reminding us of the importance of humane treatment and the ongoing fight for justice in the modern world. This change is rooted in a growing belief in human rights and the abolition of cruel and unusual punishment. In the 21st century, many countries have moved away from capital punishment entirely, citing concerns about wrongful convictions, the ethics of state-sanctioned killing, and the impact of the death penalty on society. The modern prison system, the rise of surveillance, and the increasing use of psychological manipulation in the justice system are all reflective of this transition. Today's methods of social control may not involve the brutal torture of the past, but they still serve to keep the marginalized and the weak in check, ensuring that they remain subjugated to authority. The penal system was designed to isolate criminals from society, but it also reflected the continuing desire of the state to control and punish through confinement rather than execution. In countries like China, Iran, and Saudi Arabia, Executions are still carried out, and in some cases, they remain public spectacles. These executions are often presented as part of a state-driven agenda to maintain control, using the death penalty as a tool to deter crime and assert authority. In contrast, countries that have abolished the death penalty argue that it is a form of state-sanctioned violence that perpetuates a cycle of cruelty and fear. Those accused of witchcraft were subjected to terrifying methods such as waterboarding, where the victim was made to feel as though they were drowning or being pressed under heavy weights until they confessed. These torturous methods were often justified as necessary tools of divine justice, with authorities believing that the confession was a crucial part of purging the accused of their supposed evil. However, the legacy of cruelty in history remains a stark reminder of the lengths to which rulers went to maintain their power and control. However, its use became a symbol of unchecked power, where the authorities believed that the end justified the means, no matter the brutality. Introduced as a more humane alternative to the hanging and gas chamber, the electric chair was marketed as a quick and painless way to execute criminals. However, like earlier methods of execution, it became a symbol of state power and control. The electric chair's clinical nature did not reduce its chilling impact on the public, and the image of the condemned person strapped to the chair became a grotesque representation of the state's authority over life and death. The accused were tied to a wooden stake and burned alive in front of a crowd. Those accused of crimes were subjected to physical trials, such as walking on hot coals or plunging their hands into boiling water. If they were unharmed, they were presumed innocent. If they were injured, it was seen as divine judgment, and the accused would often be punished or killed. This form of trial was rooted in superstition and served as a means for authorities to assert their power over the lives of the accused. This execution was meant to send a powerful message to society, demonstrating the Church's unyielding control over spiritual matters and the consequences of dissent. The rack was often used to extract confessions from accused criminals, who would admit to any crime just to end the pain. It was a tool of power, wielded by the state to break the resolve of anyone who dared defy authority. It was a punishment reserved for slaves, rebels, and criminals, serving as a warning to the masses about the consequences of defying Roman authority. The most cruel punishments were designed to instill fear, ensuring that the oppressed remained submissive to authority. One of the earliest and most notorious punishments in history was crucifixion, used by the ancient Romans. In ancient civilizations, flogging was another punishment used to control and humiliate the weak. This brutal method involved the victim being whipped with a leather or metal-tipped whip. The purpose was not only to cause physical pain, but to strip the victim of their dignity. Victims were placed inside a coffin-like device lined with sharp spikes. The victim's body would be pierced as they were trapped inside, causing slow and agonizing death. Though its use is debated by historians, the very idea of such a device still evokes the brutality of the medieval period. This punishment, like many others, was designed not only to execute but to extract fear from the people, ensuring compliance through terror. It was commonly used for slaves, criminals, and anyone seen as a threat to the state. Flogging was a public event, and the shame of being whipped in front of an audience often left deeper emotional scars than the physical ones. The wheel of torture, also known as the breaking wheel, was a device used during medieval times to punish those who committed serious crimes, including betrayal and murder. Another notorious punishment was the Iron Maiden, a torture device that was both terrifying and deadly. The rack, used during the Middle Ages, was another instrument of torture that served as a means of breaking the body and the spirit. The burning stake, used for those accused of heresy or witchcraft, was one of the most brutal and public punishments. As time progressed, the methods of punishment became more sophisticated but no less cruel. The concept of trial by ordeal was another cruel method used by medieval authorities. As the centuries passed, the methods of punishment evolved, but the central purpose remained the same: to exert control over the masses and eliminate any resistance to authority. By the early modern period, the concept of torture remained entrenched in both legal systems and religious practices. In the 19th century, the rise of the prison system marked a significant shift in how punishment was carried out. In the United States, the electric chair became one of the most prominent forms of execution in the 20th century. While public executions became rare in the 20th century, the death penalty itself did not disappear. The transition from public executions to private executions reflects a broader trend in modern societies to conceal the process of punishment, making it less visible to the public eye. However, while public executions have largely been phased out in many parts of the world, the use of capital punishment remains controversial. As society has evolved, the methods of punishment have shifted from physical torture to psychological control. The concept of justice has become increasingly complex, with modern societies grappling with the tension between punishment and rehabilitation. In the end, the story of cruel punishment throughout history is a story of power, fear, and control.